Now we're going to skip ahead to the shading part. We're going to look at how to shade the columns today for this session, and then you can add your details for the negative space on your own that go with your brainstorming idea. So let's take a look at this image first. Okay? On this image, this student was trying to use light and shadow to make a pattern. So if we look at the drawing, it alternates light and shadow, and the one above it, so it's opposite, or the other half of the column is the opposite, light and shadow. And then they went back to the light and shadow. The next column is the next half of the column is opposite. Then these two, this was light on or dark on the outside, now it's dark on the inside. Dark on the outside, light on the inside. So if we look at the cubes and we look at the cylinders going to the center, the pattern alternates as well. Well, actually, they did these columns the same, but the large columns alternate pattern, and if we look at the center, they alternated pattern light, dark, dark, light, dark, light, dark, light. So this student used pattern as an example. On the two examples we're going to start today, we're not going to make a pattern in this example. We are going to shade one column with a light on the outside. So it's going to be like this and darker in the center. And we're going to shade one column so that it's from the inside. So what I would like for you to do, what I have done, and that is on a piece of scratch paper, draw a sun to remind yourself where your light source is, and to make a 5-tone value scale, because that's going to come in very handy. And I'm going to start with this on this side of the drawing. And the first thing I want to do is to mark the shadow side of my drawing. So if my light is on this side, that means the shadow or the darkest side will be on the inside of the column. If I'm coming up here, the light's still coming from the same view. I have to decide, is it going to be lighter at the top or darker at the top? I think it's going to be darker at the top. So that's going to be the shadow side of my column. Light's coming from the inside. My darker side is going to be the left. Light's coming from the same side. The darker side's going to be the bottom. So by making those columns or marking them with an X, it will help me keep track of where the shadow side is. When I'm adding the shading, I'm going to start by lightening my X. And I'm going to start on the darkest side of the column first, but I'm not going to make it the darkest value first. I can have my pencil lines or pencil strokes be vertical. And as I'm moving to the lighter side, I'm going to lessen my pressure. And all the lines are going to go the same direction. So if I start using this vertical pattern, and I'm going to move this so I don't get a horizontal line in my column. And then I can shade back. Now remember, I can always add more value, but I want to have enough value established that I know where my shadow side is, and that is on the inside edge. Then rather than reaching across my drawing, I'm going to turn my paper and I've marked the X, so this is going to be my darkest side. But before I shadow, I'm going to lighten the X and take that out. If I wait till after I have started the shading, then it's going to mess up my shading. And as I'm working on the edge here, I have to be slow and neat because neatness is important. And then I'm going to lighten my pressure as I work back to the light side. The lightest side, our highlight side will have no shading at all. And if it's awkward, then I can turn my paper so that it's more comfortable in terms of drawing or shading. But all my lines are going to go the same direction. And as I come to the ends of the column, I have to be more precise and be more slow with my marks so that I don't go over onto the top of the cube. Okay, all right. So now as I'm working, eventually I'm going to have to decide what to do with these inside marks as well. Okay, so my sun is up here. So how do I shade the inside columns? Well, a couple things. As not only am I thinking about light, but since I have pencil, I want to take a piece of scratch paper and lay it over the parts that I've shaded so my hand is moving on a blank paper, not rubbing on my drawing. Okay, my light is coming from here. And let's see, we started like this, so let's make sure we're going the right way. So if the light's coming from here, I have to decide which side is going to be darkest, the bottom, the front, or the inside. And I'm going to have the inside be the darkest. So that means where my block touches my column, it's going to be dark, and I want to make sure that I'm not running over my column with my dark value. And again, I can start medium dark. I can always add more value. But each side of my cube is going to be darker as well. And here on the side of the block also, I want all of my lines to go the same direction. Okay, so my sun is from here. So then I have to decide what's going to be lighter on this column. Is it going to be the top or the bottom? Well, it's a good idea to look at my arm. My arm is basically a cylinder. It's lighter on the top, and as it rolls around, there is shadow. So I'm going to keep that in mind. It's going to be lighter at the top, medium in the middle, and darker at the bottom. Now, it's not going to have as much highlight as the one out here because it's inside and it's behind this column. I do want to make sure that every surface, the cube value surface is darker or lighter than the column surface. They have to be different. So I can make the column different or darker, or I can make the column lighter. But every surface has to have a different value. And then where my column is darker, I'm going to add a darker value here at the bottom. When I come to this next column, it's going to be the same way, that is the darkest value, is going to be at the bottom. And then it's going to go lighter on the side. If I get it too dark, I'll have to come in with my eraser and lighten that. This was my lightest, so I'm going to leave this very lightly shaded. And this was my darkest side of this block or cube, so that means this side is going to be the block. Whoops, let's get rid of that so we don't get a line. Anytime we have something underneath our paper, we're going to get a mark. So if you start to notice a mark you don't want, check to make sure your other paper is not underneath there. Okay, so it's going to look something like that. All right, now our first drawing that we looked at, they had a pattern. So now we're going to take a second drawing and look at what would happen if the light source was, we're going to imagine that the sun is in the center. Okay, so it's going to look more like this one. Okay, so this lighter is in the inside, so you'll notice my X is on the outside. So for right now, I'm going to put my sun in the center, reminding me that this is my highlight side. And my outside is going to be darker. And again, if it feels awkward, once I have the edge established, and I'm going to work carefully at the end so I don't go over onto my cube or my block. To lighten the value, I'm going to lighten the pressure. So the main thing is to be consistent. You can use the light and dark patterns to establish a value pattern, like we saw on the first one that was a square. That's this one. Or you're going to decide, is your light coming from the outside here? Light's coming from the outside, or light's coming from the inside. Whichever light source you choose, you need to use that for your entire drawing. And so it will be that way for all of the pillars and for all of the blocks. So if this is the shadow side for my block, the light's coming from this way. So for in this drawing, this side of the block is going to be lightest. And this front side is going to be medium dark or very dark. Now when I'm coming up to the edge, I have to be careful so that I go off my drawing. If I come back this way and my pencil catches, it's going to mess up the edge of my paper. So I want to shade off the drawing when I'm working at the corners. Be very careful. Corners are really important. We don't want our drawings to be all crinkled. Okay? All right, so now if the light's in the center, what is that going to do from the bottom? That makes the top is going to be light and the bottom's going to be dark. If the light's in the center, the inside's going to be light, the outside's going to be dark. If the light's in the center, this edge is going to be light and this edge is going to be the dark. Okay, so once we have established the shading there, then we can work our way into the center. But remember, we're going to use a piece of blank paper so that our hand is working over the blank paper to go to the inside. All right, so we're going to shade all of our columns and all of our boxes first, and then we'll finish the inside of our drawing. And your drawings are due next time. Happy drawing!